What unites Hindus? One of the things that unites Hindus is a concept called reincarnation. It is also known as samsara, which means wandering, referring to the soul's journey from one life to another until achieving what's known as moksha, which means liberation or salvation. Samsara is a cyclical picture of life rather than a linear picture. It is a cycle of living and dying, beginning and ending, etc. Your past life also determines your present life. Your current life determines your future life, which leads us to the concept of karma. Karma is the idea of what goes around comes around. Your next life will be lived as a reflection of your present life, and your present life is a reflection of your past life. You can go through hundreds or even thousands of cyclical lives before reaching moksha. Again, moksha is liberation from samsara. The human problem, according to Hindus, is that the soul is trapped in samsara, or cyclical reincarnation, and it is in need of an escape in order that it might obtain moksha, or liberation. Well, how do you achieve moksha? According to Hinduism, there are three ways. The way of good works is the first way of achieving moksha. Dharma is basically known as good works or a moral duty. Dharma is living by a code of conduct. This code is different according to what caste you live in. Good dharma or good works equals good karma. The second way you achieve moksha is the way of knowledge. The idea here is that the basic human problem is intellectual. This relates to Brahman. Brahman is the divine totality, the ultimate reality. It is similar to a higher being or God, but this is more like spiritual reality. The difference is that Brahman is not personal. It is a force. Our problem is ignorance of that which is real, of Brahman, and in need of knowledge that everything, including our souls, is Brahman. Getting here requires meditation, introspection, until we realize that we are one with Brahman. Ultimately, it is a renunciation of self and a union with Brahman, who is the ultimate reality. The third way of achieving moksha in Hinduism is the way of devotion. Views of the human problem here are spiritual. There are many gods that exist in Hinduism. Each one of them might be a manifestation of Brahman or the ultimate reality. Out of those millions of gods, there are three major gods. The three major gods in Hinduism are Brahma, who is the creator of life, Vishnu, who is known as the sustainer and protector of life, and Shiva, the destroyer of life. Can you see the cycle of reincarnation even in these three gods? The creator of life, the sustainer and protector of life, and the destroyer of life. So if you give devotion to one of these gods or other gods, then you can find your way to moksha. For example, you might have heard of Krishna. Krishna is viewed to be a physical manifestation of Vishnu, the sustainer and protector of life. If you serve Krishna well in your life, then you can be released from samsara and experience moksha. Now, I'd like to share just a word about the practices of yoga and meditation in Hinduism. The idea of Eastern yoga and Eastern meditation practices is to empty yourself of self in order that you might connect to Brahman on the path to moksha or freedom from the cycle of reincarnation. Some would say that this Hindu practice should not be practiced by Christians. If you are talking about practicing yoga and meditation in this way, this is a Hindu practice. However, if you utilize these practices in a way that fills your mind with the good things of God, meditation on whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable, anything that is excellent or praiseworthy, and can find the peace of Christ in that, then that becomes a Christian exercise. That scripture, by the way, we can find that in Philippians 4:8. Well, how do we share with those who are Hindus? How do we share the gospel with those who are Hindus? Well, the first thing, we need to seek to understand where they are coming from. We need to understand their religious point of view. Secondly, we need to look expectantly. We need to look at what God is doing with this relationship that you have with this person who belongs to Hinduism. You may not fully understand, but God is working in their heart. Joining God in what He is doing is the important thing here. Third, pray boldly. Do you remember Elijah in 1 Kings 18? He was surrounded by all of these false gods, one namely Baal. Elijah prayed for God's glory to be shown among them, and God did. We can too pray boldly that God's glory would be shown. Fourth, always point to Jesus. Always point to Jesus. This is so important. This is a great opening to the gospel. Hindus are very open to Jesus, the person of Jesus. So this is a great way to begin to open up the talk or the conversation about spiritual things. Ask them to study the teachings of Jesus with you. Do you know any stories in Hinduism, you might say, where certain gods have come to life? Listen to them and try to understand. Then cross the bridge and say, can I tell you a story in the Bible about how the one true God came to life here on the earth? And then study Jesus, His claims, His teachings, His unique nature. How do you communicate the supremacy of Jesus? It's very interesting, and very carefully we should do so. But you can ask them, have you ever met a guru who died and came back to life? I know somebody who is like a guru who did this. Of course, that is Jesus Christ. So talk about Jesus, His death, His resurrection from the dead, and then begin to shift the conversation from reincarnation to resurrection. That is so important for all of us to know. Focus not on how we find salvation, but what God has done to bring us salvation. We're not trying to add Jesus to their pantheon of gods, but to help them lay aside all other gods and follow Jesus. You can also dive into Matthew 11:29 and 30 in light of the cyclical reincarnation, where it says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. You see, that is a totally different concept than the concept of reincarnation. Again, I want to say, focus on not what we do to find salvation, but on what God has done to offer us salvation. Ephesians 2:8 is a great verse to share as well. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God. And lastly, you want to identify the bad news that we cannot save ourselves. We have separation from God. Remember their paths of salvation, including good deeds, obtaining knowledge, and giving devotion. We can't save ourselves. You know, Gandhi spoke of his clear distance from God. As much as he wanted to know the Supreme Being, he just knew he was not even close. This is where we can identify with the fact that we all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. Trust me, everyone feels that.